and phosphorus more readily available in the soil for tissue development. Liming also improves your soil structure. It increases the rate of water percolation in soil. Then it reduces turbidity in fish ponds through flocculation property. Now, the last method of replenishing lost nutrients into the soil is the application of inorganic fertilizers. Fertilizers are chemical substances generally in the form of powder, granules, pellets, or crystals, which can be added to the soil to increase the fertility of the soil. So it may be in powdery form, may be in crystals, may be in pellets. So in whatever form that it is, but that you add it to the soil and increases its fertility, it is called fertilizer. Fertilizers help to increase crop yield and soil fertility. It also helps soil structure and aeration. Then application of inorganic fertilizer also increases the growth of plankton in fish pond. When you are doing your fish pond aquaculture, that will be treated in SS2 agric. You had in a process of, before you stock your fish, so that there will be food available for your plants to eat, you have to add fertilizer so that there will be plants that will grow. That is the plankton. So when you add fertilizer, plankton will be available for your fishes to feed on. Then we're talking about the types of fertilizer. Two types of fertilizer. We have the straight or single fertilizers. Then we have what we call the complete, mixed, or compound fertilizer. You can call it any of the three names. It's either you call it complete fertilizer, mixed fertilizer, or compound fertilizer. Now, the straight or single fertilizers, they contain just one element, which may be nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It could be any of the three. Just contains one element. Nitrogen fertilizers are fertilizers that are rich in nitrogen. So when you hear nitrogen fertilizer, it means that fertilizer is rich in nitrogen. An example of nitrogen fertilizer, we have potassium nitrate, we have anhydrous ammonia, we have ammonium sulfate, then we have ammonium nitrate or urea. Those are examples of nitrogen fertilizer. I said nitrogen fertilizers are fertilizers that are rich in nitrogen. Then potassium fertilizer, just like nitrogen fertilizers, are fertilizers that are rich in potassium. An example of potassium fertilizer is muriate of potash, that's KCl. Then phosphorus fertilizers are fertilizers that are rich in phosphorus. Example, we have single superphosphates, we have rock phosphates, we have basic slag, triple superphosphate, diammonium phosphate. Those are examples of phosphorus fertilizers. Then the second type of fertilizer now, the complete fertilizers, or what we call mixed or compound fertilizers. This contains only two or more nutrients. It's not just one. It can contain more than, they can contain two or more nutrients. An example of a complete fertilizer or a compound fertilizer is NPK. That's the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium fertilizer. That's the NPK. N for nitrogen, P for phosphorus, then K. That's the symbol for potassium. So they contain nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And they can exist in various combinations. The 15-15-15 NPK, the 25-10 NPK, the 5-10-5 NPK. These numbers are just the representation of the ratio or the proportion of each of these elements in the fertilizer. For instance, 15-15-15 NPK fertilizer means nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, they are in equal proportion. Whereas in 5-10-5 NPK fertilizer, it means that phosphorus is double the quantity of nitrogen and potassium. So you see 5-10-5. So it means it's phosphorus that is times 2 the quantity of nitrogen and also that of potassium. So that's just what the numbers for. Then the methods of fertilizer application. There are 5 methods of fertilizer application. The first is broadcasting. This is the spreading of fertilizers evenly on the ground before they are plowed into the soil. So you just broadcast. You spread fertilizer evenly on your soil before you plow the soil. Then the next method is the ring method. In this method, you create a circular hole around the crop. So you dig a hole around the crop, then you place the fertilizer inside the hole, then you now cover the hole. The circular hole must not come too close to the plant, else the fertilizer will touch your plant and it will burn it. So that is why you create a hole around the plant. That's the ring method. Then the third method is the row or side placement. In this method, a hole is made a few centimeters from each plant. Then you put a teaspoon of fertilizer in the hole per plant, then you cover it. It's similar to the ring method, but this is row. It's not just one, it's in a row. Then top dressing, that's the fourth method of fertilizer application, is a method that you use to apply fertilizer. It's a second application method. You have previously applied fertilizer on that farmland or for that crop, but you are now coming to do a touch-up or a follow-up of the previous application. That is what top dressing is all about. It is done like after several weeks of the first dose has been applied. So the second dose is to supplement the first application. Then the last method of fertilizer application is the foliar spray. This is the method in which some trace elements or microelements are dissolved in water. They are needed in just trace or in just little quantity. So they are dissolved in water, then they are now sprayed to the crop directly. The leaves of the plants are capable of absorbing the nutrient directly into their body. So you use foliar spray method to broadcast or to apply trace elements. You should note that. Then the ways in which soil nutrients can be lost, I mentioned that earlier. Crop removal, erosion, leaching, then the pH too can affect it, excess of other nutrients, oxidation and reduction of organic materials are ways in which nutrients can be lost. I've mentioned that earlier. I'm just refreshing you. Now we'll move on to talk about nutrient cycles. And we'll be talking about the various nutrients. We've mentioned nutrients earlier. We talked about macro and micro elements. Then we talked about the various functions of each of the elements and the deficiency symptoms. So now we want to talk about the cycling of the various elements or a few elements in nature. And the first in that category, we'll be talking about the nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen cycle is about the sequence of physical and chemical processes by which atmospheric nitrogen is circulated in the atmosphere. Simply put, the movement, the various transformation of nitrogen in the atmosphere is what is called nitrogen cycle. Then there are four natural processes involved in the nitrogen cycle. First, the nitrogen fixation, we have the nitrification, we have denitrification, then the last one is decay. Nitrogen fixation. In nitrogen fixation, you have nitrogen compounds in the soil. Naturally occurring nitrogen compounds in the soil. We have humus, we have ammonia, we have nitrates and nitrites. Then there are remains of dead plants and animals that undergo decomposition by putrefying bacteria, which uses the energy released for respiration. Now, naturally when plants and animals die, they get into the soil, whether buried intentionally or accidentally. However, they are in the soil. So, putrefying bacteria in the soil works on these remains of plants and animals and use the energy released for respiration. Now, they are eventually broken down into simple substances like carbon dioxide, water, and ammonia. The remains now, they are broken down into CO2, H2O, and NH3. Then nitrification. Ammonia is washed into the soil by rain to form ammonia compound. Ammonia compounds. Then the ammonia is converted into nitrites by nitrosomonas, a nitrifying bacteria. Then nitrobacter, which is another nitrifying bacteria, transforms nitrites to nitrates, which are then absorbed into solution by green plant through their roots. The nitrates now are getting to the plants from just the soil. So the green plants absorb nitrogen in form of nitrates into their roots for protein synthesis. The denitrification process. Some of the nitrates that are absorbed by the plants are converted into atmospheric nitrogen or back to ammonia by denitrifying bacteria. So they reduce the amount available to the plants. Out of the nitrates that the plant has absorbed into their roots, some of them are converted into atmospheric nitrogen, while some are converted back into ammonia by the action of denitrifying bacteria. So the amount that is available to the plant is now reduced. The next process, nitrogen fixation. This is the processes by which combined nitrogen is added to the soil from free gaseous nitrogen in the air. This could be done through thunderstorm or nitrogen fixing microorganisms. So when there is thunderstorm, free gaseous nitrogen is added into the soil. Then by the action of nitrogen fixing microorganisms, nitrogen is also added to the soil. Minute amounts of atmospheric oxygen released during lightning combines with nitrogen to form nitric oxide. That is still talking about thunderstorm. When there is lightning, there is a small amount of oxygen that is released. So that combines with nitrogen to form nitric oxide. Rainwater dissolves the nitric oxide to form nitric and nitrous acids. So when rain falls, that oxide that is formed from the lightning, the oxygen that